Hello and welcome back to Witchfix, and today I'm going to catch you up on part 2 of my experience of playing Dishonoured, the definitive edition for the Xbox One. So when I last left off in the episode, I couldn't actually remember the names of most of the characters or locations because I'd only been playing for like a couple of hours and most of that was spent trying not to die horribly. So apologies, I now know some of the character names and locations, so hopefully we'll get some more information in this episode. I've also now finished the game. I think it's because mostly I'm used to playing like open world kind of sandboxy things, that it just seemed like really fucking short because there's only 9 missions in the game and 2 of those missions are not actually assassinations, they're just Corvo doing stuff that is plot relevant. So I played through the first, I think, 3 missions in one reasonable go, and then the last 6 I basically did in one long session because at a certain point plot things happen and then it becomes quite exciting and you kind of want to know what happens next, so I just played straight through to the end at that point. So it's not what I would call like a long game, but I think it does have like a lot of replay value because there's a lot of things where I was like, I probably should have come at doing that a different way, or done this side objective which I didn't get around to doing, or tried to do it in a less lethal way or a more lethal way, and there's lots of different ways to play it, so I think in that sense it does have quite a lot of replay value. Also the story is really good and I really enjoyed that. There are going to be spoilers in this episode because I'm going to be talking about that story because now it's actually happened and I know what was going on. So where I left off last time, Corvo, who is me, had just escaped from prison, joined up with the Loyalists at the Hound Pits pub, and I'd gone out and done one assassination and it told me that I'd killed 27 people and that was bad. So I then redid that level and killed, I think, like 2 people, one of whom was the person that I was meant to kill. I killed 4 people because I killed 3 people for Granny Rags, who is a character you meet who's a little bit of a kind of crazy homeless lady, who's voiced by Susan Sarandon. So I killed 3 guys for her, and I was doing a second mission for her where you're meant to get some rat viscera and use it to contaminate a still which is owned by the Bottle Street gang who are harassing her, and she wants them all killed. And then I sort of, after I'd obtained the rat viscera, thought, actually, this is probably going to kill a bunch of people, and I don't want to have a playthrough while I kill a bunch of people. So I went and did the assassination that I was there to do, and I ended that level only having killed like 4 people, which gave me low chaos, and I was quite happy with myself. So then I went and did the next mission to get into the Golden Cat brothel to rescue Emily, who's the Empress's daughter, and to also kill a pair of twins, the Pendleton twins. And for that one, I actually tried to just not kill anybody, and I succeeded. Yes! Got through a whole mission, didn't kill anyone. I went through the non-lethal disposal quest instead of the actual assassination. So you get rid of the twins by, in this case, having their tongues cut out, having their head shaved and having them deposited in one of their like super cruel and illegal mines to work out the rest of their days. And you do that by doing some side quests for a character called Slackjaw, who is leader of the Bottle Street gang. So with that, didn't feel particularly fantastic about it because I feel like that was somehow meaner than just killing them, but it was definitely easier, so washed my hands of that. I rescued Emily and went on and did the next mission after that. Then it gets to the point where you have to go back to the Empress's tower to kill the guy who was assumed power, the High Overseer, since her death, and he's the one who orchestrated her death, so obviously we're pretty mad about that. And that was, I think, the first level that I had real issues with trying to get through it without killing anybody. I did have, I think, my highest body count on that level of like 9 people because there were just a lot of guards and I kept getting discovered, and in the end you're just like, oh, and you have to keep reloading your save, and it takes like an actual minute to reload your save. So in the end I had a podcast on my phone and I would just push play when it got back to the loading screen because it was just annoying me so much that I had to continually reload. But I got through it, and partly those deaths were caused by me rewiring a watchtower to attack people, and I hadn't really thought that one through, so it did blow up quite a lot of people up. in doing those missions, I acquired some powers. I kind of steered clear of any of the offensive powers, like the ones that summon swarms of rats, and the ones that give you like wind blast, and the ones that turn people into ash when you kill them, because I felt like I wasn't really trying to kill people, so it was kind of pointless me having those. I invested quite heavily in my blink power, which gave it a lot of range, which was really helpful. Also dark vision, so I could see people coming, and possession, which was so useful because in several of the missions I possessed a fish and I swam in through the drains, which was very weird and kind of disorientating because swimming, but it was quite cool. I was enjoying myself. And then you kill the High Overseer and you go back to the Houndpits pub and everyone's there and they've got pints and Emily's drawing a little picture and she's really happy because she's going home and she's going to be the Empress. And they gave me a drink and they were like, well done, Corvo. And I was holding my drink, sitting in my little chair at home going, I trust all of you horrible face bastards about as far as I can throw you, because let me tell you something. I've played a game before and I've seen a movie and I know how these plot lines go. So imagine my completely non-surprise when I walked upstairs to my bed, which was the next mission to do, was go to bed, and everything started to go a bit blurry, and then I fell down, and then I woke up, and I was surrounded by people going, we have successfully poisoned Corvo. And Samuel, who's the nice man who'd been taxiing me around to all the different missions in his little riverboat, was like, yes, I have brought you the poison. Corvo's poison, the poison for Corvo. And then they all left, even though, like, my eyes were open. I was kind of swiveling my head to, like, look at all of them. And then Samuel was like, I like you, Corvo, so I only gave you half the poison. Best buds. And then he left. And then basically they dump your body in the river and you are recovered by a man called Dowd and his assassins. And Dowd is the guy who killed the Empress. So he's not our bestest best friend. He also locks you in a little room, even knowing that you have outsider powers like what he has. He locks you in like a tiny room with one little hole to get out and a bunch of rats. Not like a lethal number of rats, but a convenient number. So you can just possess one and go whoop out the hole and into the world. This is where the game started to get really difficult because they'd taken away all my gear. So I only had what potions I could find in the environment, and they give you back a sword, but they don't give you back your sleep darts, and I needed sleep darts because that's what I was pretty much relying on for non-lethal, taking people out of my way. So I did the side quest. There's two quest options. You can go and recover your gear, or you can go straight to Dowd's headquarters. And I went to recover my gear, which is super difficult to do. Mainly because there's a lot of weepers, which are the infected, which aren't as scary as I thought they would be. Basically, they've just got the rat plague. They occasionally cough up a load of black sludge, and they kind of jump at you like zombies, and they're full of bugs. Like, their immune system is so broken down that bugs just live in them. So bugs jump out and they come after you, which is unpleasant, but I managed to mainly blink away from those people and that was fine. And there are also these weird like pod things that look like Kakuna from Pokemon, and they kind of hiss and flap and they open and spray acid at you, and there's really no way to kill those without like a gun. So I just tried to avoid those as well. And then I went and got my kit back, got all the way back to Dowd's headquarters. And this is when I really did actually have to start killing people because I had no sleep darts. Even though I got my gear back, I hadn't had any sleep darts on me when I went to sleep and when everything happened. And in retrospect, I probably should have purchased some before walking into the party where I was going to get murdered. But, you know, 2020. So I went through and I tried to sneak around quite a few assassins, but I did end up having to kill about 9 people, which is still low chaos, so that's fine. But I felt bad every time it happened. I was like, oh, I've failed myself and I've failed the game. Then you get to the end, you sort of find Dowd hidden away with his like ill-gotten Empress murdering gains. And then you have an option to kill him or to steal the pouch on his belt and then leave, which gives him the impression that you can get to him anywhere, and somehow that's more scary than just like slitting him up like a Thanksgiving turkey. So I did that and I stole his key, and then you went to use that to get into a secret tunnel and escape. I could not find the entrance to this tunnel. I went round like I don't know how many times, like 12 different times, leaving the room and going different ways and continually getting murdered or having to kill an exceptionally high number of people and then having to reload the game. And then I eventually found that I'd actually discovered the entrance to the tunnel previously but hadn't recognised that I was in it, which annoyed me in the extreme. So the mission from that point on is to get back to the Hound Pits pub. There are side missions in that you have to find a special key to get into the main sewer line, and to do that you have to resolve a conflict between Granny Rags, who is like an evil witch, and Slackjaw, who is a crime boss, and you've done missions for both of them. And I was picking up some runes, I was just kind of getting on with the game, but the section of going through the sewers and getting all the way back to the Hound Pits pub takes a ridiculously long time. It's definitely the longest mission because you go to like quite a few different locations. Because that whole time there was nowhere I found that I could either purchase sleep darts or find them in the environment, I ended up again having to kill a few guys, and I was really worried about my overall chaos because like the level just was not ending. It was really long. And it felt like I couldn't really stop until I reached the end of it, if that makes sense. Like, you do clear objectives like getting the sewer key, getting to certain locations, but it felt like I was in one continuous mission, and because the missions up until that point have been ones that I could complete in a single sitting, it felt like weirdly paced, that there was this massive long section. Having said that, the plot was obviously quite good because even though I'd only met Emily like a handful of times, like every time she'd like hugged me and she was really happy to see me, and she was like doing me little drawings, and she came and visited me in my room. She may be the least annoying kid in video game history because I genuinely felt for her, and I was really worried that she was going to be dead and that I wouldn't be able to save her. My emotional motivation was very clear. You finally get back to the Hound Pits pub, and it's still got the same guys in it, but they've killed off quite a lot of like the friendly NPC characters, and the people who betrayed you are just there having a piss up basically, and they're planning on taking Emily to be coronated the next day. And this is where you majorly encounter tall boys that I'd kind of seen from a distance, but these ones there were a lot more of them, and they were a lot scarier. And when I say it's men on stilts with big guns, that probably doesn't sound terrifying, but it is, because they can see you when you think you can't be seen. But essentially you do that, you rescue, there's optional objectives like rescue friendly NPCs that have been imprisoned at the pub, which is super helpful because if you rescue the inventor guy, he's got a machine that basically knocks everyone on the property unconscious except you and your friends, which is fantastic because I didn't have any sleep darts. I was starting to feel a bit like an addict at this point, and I was just like, I need my sleep darts. And then you have basically the final mission is to go from the Hound Pits pub to the lighthouse, which is where Havelock, who's like the ringleader of all the nasty people, has taken Emily and is holed up, essentially waiting for, I guess, you to make an attempt on his life. After the kind of challenge of getting from the scene of my betrayal to back to the pub, which took like an hour and a half for me to do that mission, it was quite long, and all the things that I'd seen and been through, like pits full of like wrapped up corpses and all these rats and video game water, which just unnerves me in the extreme. The lighthouse mission was actually phenomenally easy because I had my sleep darts, which was great, and I managed to get to the top with very little issues. I think I only had to reload like twice, mainly because I had really good blink range and aforementioned sleep darts, and I had by this point a lot of practice in just knocking people unconscious from behind with a bit of a chokehold. And then obviously you rescue Emily and everything's fine, and you get like an ending cutscene where you sort of hear from the outsider about what happened immediately after that last mission, and I got the good ending. Super happy about that. And you finally get to see Corvo without his face mask on, and you know, without it being first person, and you know, he's kind of a looker, so I'm pleased that I have a nice face. Overall, I'd say the game, pretty satisfying experience. I'm very happy with it. The missions felt quite balanced except for that like unreasonably long one, but I feel like there was a reason that they did that, and there's a lot of emotional tension in fighting your way back to Emily. The plot, pretty good, really enjoyed it. It's simple, and the plot twist is one that is pretty easy to see coming because everyone just looks so unpleasant and evil at the base. They definitely look like people who are going to betray you. I mean, it couldn't have been telegraphed any more clearly if one of them had been voiced by Keith David. I liked all the powers that I got to use. I liked how much they featured and how much you have to rely on using them, because I'd heard from other people who'd played it that you know, they didn't really use the powers and they didn't really like them that much, and they just took it as like a straight up stealth game. I now believe that those people were lying, because I don't think that you can play the game without utilising those powers, so I call bullshit. And it was just generally just a fun game to play, and a really nice tight story, and I really got a sense of character, even though I was playing in first person as a sort of voiceless rectangle sliding around the environment. I got a sense of the character, and apparently I didn't find this out until after I'd finished it, because my brother told me, depending on how you're playing through the game, Emily will draw you a picture, and if you're like nasty Corvo who's killing a bunch of people, she does a picture of your skull mask looking all scary. But if you are a nice Corvo who's not killing people, which is what I was doing, she does you a picture of like your human face with little rosy red cheeks, and on top of it it says Daddy in like kid crayon letters. And I didn't actually see the picture because I wasn't paying enough attention, I guess, to my environment, but I looked it up afterwards. And in the end of the game cutscene part, the outsider says that when you're buried, Emily is very sad, you know, because you've obviously reached the end of your natural life. And it says that you were more to her than a bodyguard. And I'd already kind of, even without seeing the picture, and even without that bit at the end, I'd kind of twigged that Corvo was Emily's dad, because there is no emperor. Also, I've seen the movie The Bodyguard, so I was kind of expecting that. So that's interesting, and I kind of am interested to play the second game now. I don't know how much that will draw on the save that I have for Dishonored, if at all, or if that changes the plot in some way. I'll have to look that up. But yeah, that was kind of nice to find out. I'm now going to play the Knife of Dunwall and the Brigmore Witches DLC, which I have, which apparently focuses on Dowd, the Empress's actual assassin, as a character, and I guess his kind of redemption arc. So I don't know if canonically it's been decided that Corvo didn't kill him, because it seems like these take place after the Empress's assassination, or maybe they take place between that and the point at which Corvo would stab him in the neck. Not sure. Now that I've completed the main game, I'm not really certain that there are any like trigger warnings to like include. You do go to a brothel, but you don't really see anything weird there. The only thing I can think of is in one of the missions, I think it's Lady Boyle's Last Party, one of the non-lethal removal option for her is that there's a guy at her party who knows that you're there to kill her and says, if you knock her out and bring her down to the basement, I will take her away and she'll live with me forever. And that seems a little bit rapey and odd, so give a warning for that. And also there's quite a lot of gore that you do see. Mainly it's rat related, because you'll see them like eating people and there's like splatters of blood from that. And also when you're in the escape through the sewers portion, you do see trains dropping like wrapped up bodies in like sheets into the river, which is kind of disturbing. But you don't see anything like close up gore in that sense. It's definitely a game that I recommend, particularly if you're someone who, like me, doesn't really like playing games in first person. I think because of the sneaky nature of it, if you're not wild on first person direct combat, you can definitely avoid a huge amount of that. And that makes it slightly easier to get you into first person perspective, because in games like Oblivion and Skyrim, there's quite a lot of like direct combat. And I find that like quite difficult to do in first person, but with just sneaking around, I definitely think it works. Plot wise, it's quite a predictable game, but that doesn't make the plot any less kind of dramatic or enjoyable when you're playing it. I did get very immersed and very sucked in, so good job, writers. Also, it was a game with like a magical protagonist. There is a lot of magic stuff, probably more than I was actually expecting when I started, to be honest, what with the outsider and the sort of other world that he's in, like the void. finding all the runes, getting all your different powers, and then you do see other magical things like Granny Rags has her magical powers, and even the overseers have these like magic music boxes that they wind up, and it stops your magic powers working when you're near them, which is annoying but still pretty cool. It still does annoy me slightly that there is an expectation that, like, to get the good ending, and I've looked up on YouTube and watched the bad ending and the really bad ending, to get like the only ending that I felt would have any kind of resolution to the character and like would paint your character in a good light, you do have to go through it killing, I guess, like less than 10 people per level. I definitely think that that is doable. Killing no one would be very difficult. I only managed that on like one mission, and I nearly managed it on another one, but I think someone died in an explosion that I caused by accident, so that's on me. So I think that it is quite forgiving in terms of like, oh yeah, well you can kill a few people, but not a huge amount, and you don't have to do all like the non-lethal options for all of the assassinations if you don't want to. Although some of them, like the one for the Pendleton brothers, was actually easier because you didn't have to like infiltrate the 2 different rooms where they were. You just had to get some information, take it back to Slackjaw, and then he just took care of everything for you, which definitely easier. So I think, although it is annoying not to be able to kill people, the game is quite forgiving if you do have to. And if you want to go through it just, you know, stabbing literally everyone in the neck, then you'll get the bad ending. But if you don't really care about that, then, you know, go away and have fun with it. Because at the end of the day, it's just a cutscene and you can skip that. So it doesn't really change the actual story. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Remember to keep an eye out for an update on how I'm doing with the DLC and Dishonored 2 when that finally arrives in the post. And in the meantime, you can follow on Twitter at Witchfix. You can get in touch via Gmail, which is witchfixpodcast@gmail.com. You can donate to my Patreon, which is in the description box for this episode. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!